Can Canada and America survive Trump's trade war? When Trump took office in 2025, Canada probably expected a difficult relationship. But 19 months later, the two countries are now openly describing what is happening as a trade war. U.S. tariffs have gone into effect on billions of dollars worth of Canadian products. Canada is preparing retaliatory tariffs of its own, and now Trump is threatening 50% tariffs on Canadian cars, trucks, and auto parts. That's a remarkable situation between two countries whose economies have been integrated for generations. Canada and the United States operated on a simple assumption. Whatever political disagreements came between them, trade would continue. Our factories are connected, our energy systems are connected, our automotive industries are connected, and roughly 3/4 of Canadian exports still go to the United States. But tariffs have come and gone. Negotiations have broken down. Quick favor. I'm trying to get this channel to 5,000 subscribers as quick as possible. If you like what you heard, you know what to do. Now, the real question isn't whether Trump likes tariffs. We already know that. The question is, what are those tariffs actually supposed to do? Are they forcing Canada to make concessions? Are they moving manufacturing back to the United States? Or are they convincing Canada that depending this heavily on America has become too dangerous? Let's start with what does Trump want? Trump's strategy is fairly straightforward. The United States has an enormous consumer market. Canada depends heavily on access to it. And Trump believes Washington should use that leverage. Some disputes involve Canadian dairy protections and other trade barriers. But manufacturing, particularly automobiles, may be even more important. The North American auto industry was built as one interconnected system. A component can be produced in the United States, another comes from Mexico, while the vehicle is assembled in Ontario. And the finished product is sent back to America. Trump looks at that system and asks, why isn't more of this production happening inside the United States? Tariffs are designed to change that calculation, make importing from Canada more expensive, make American production relatively more attractive, and use access to the U.S. market to extract concessions. From Washington's perspective, Canada has much more to lose from restricted American trade than America has to lose from restricted Canadian trade. That gives the United States enormous leverage. But there's a problem. Canada isn't a company negotiating a contract. It's a country, and countries respond politically when their economic dependence is used against them. What is Canada's response? Prime Minister Mark Carney's response has been to make Canada less dependent on the United States, not to stop trading with America. That would be unrealistic. But to create more alternatives, Canada wants to dramatically expand exports outside the United States. That means more trade with Europe and Asia, more Pacific port capacity, more rail infrastructure, and stronger trade between Canada's own provinces. The logic is simple. If Washington can threaten Canada's economy by restricting access to one market, Canada needs more market. But geography does make that extremely difficult. If you're manufacturing something in southern Ontario, Detroit may be only a few hours away by truck. Shipping that same product to Germany, Japan, or India means ports, ships, longer distances, and higher costs. You cannot negotiate geography away. The United States isn't simply Canada's largest customer. It's the largest wealthy market sitting directly beside it. That advantage is almost impossible to replace. Almost. Can Canada actually diversify? Canada can become less dependent on the United States. It probably cannot replace it, and that's an important distinction. Canada can definitely sell more oil and natural gas to Asia. It can expand its Pacific ports. It can build new transportation and energy corridors. Canadian companies can find more customers in Europe and elsewhere. In fact, they're doing it every day right now. But those changes require years of infrastructure investment. And even if Canada succeeds, America will almost certainly remain its most important trading partner. So the goal isn't really separation. It's leverage. If Canada can reduce the share of its economy dependent on the United States, then Washington becomes less capable of using access to the American market as political pressure. And this creates a strange paradox for Trump. The more successfully the United States demonstrates how much power it has over Canada, the stronger Canada's incentives become to reduce that power. Can the relationship survive? Can Canada and America survive this trade war? Almost certainly. The geography is too powerful for the countries to truly separate. Pipelines cross the border, power grids cross the border, factories depend on suppliers on both sides. Canada supplies the United States with energy, metals, lumber, agricultural products, and automotive components. And Canadian businesses depend heavily on American consumers. These relationships have took generations to build, but something more difficult to rebuild may have been damaged. Trust. For decades, Canadian companies could invest around the assumption that access to the American market was relatively predictable. Trade agreements established rules, the border was stable, and political disagreements rarely threatened the entire economic relationship. That assumption isn't as safe anymore. Even if Trump and Carney reach an agreement tomorrow, Canada now has a reason to continue building alternatives. More Pacific, European trade, more energy export capacity, more internal Canadian trade. From Canada's perspective, that isn't necessarily anti-American. It's risk management. And America has something else to lose from this shift too. The United States has benefited enormously from having a wealthy, stable supplier of energy, resources, and manufactured goods directly across its northern border. If Canada develops more customers elsewhere, some of that economic relationship becomes less automatic. Trump may succeed in winning concessions. He may attract some manufacturing back to the United States. He may prove how much economic leverage Washington has over Canada. But he may also accomplish something Canadian government has talked about for decades without ever having enough motivation to fully pursue it. Not a Canada that abandons the United States, that's unrealistic, but a Canada with more options. The United States and Canada will remain neighbors. They will remain allies. And most likely, they will remain major trading partners. But the old relationship depended on more than geography. It depended on the assumption that each country could rely on the other. The border won't move, but the assumptions around it, they already have. Hey, this is Frank with America's Geopolitics. See you next time.